where we recognize that the purpose of being alive on the planet is for each of us to let our light completely shine. And that is called fulfillment. And when everybody's filament is full, there's no need to fight other people over the crumbs. We all can win. It's a win-win-win solution. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Swami, you're proposing a sane world. You must be crazy. Well, I recommend that we all commit ourselves to a sane asylum. And the best place to go sane together is by laughing, love and laughter together. Spread it around. Make it contagious. Make it the new virus that everybody on humor, and one of the people in the workshop, this is back during the AIDS time, and he and his partner were both had AIDS, and they may have been symptomatic or not, but they were starting to get symptoms and so on. And what they realized is that it's not about laughing at your situation. It could be about laughing about something that's out there. So in other words, you don't have to turn the laughter directly on whatever it is that's paining you. But they said that while they were watching things that were funny, they were not in pain. That's what Norman Cousins discovered. He discovered that while it was a very painful condition that he had, but while he was engaged in laughter, it actually reduced his physical pain. And then for that period of time when this guy was in my class, he and his partner were watching comedy. They had a respite from pain. So it's not so much, oh, now I have the double burden. Not only do I have this terrible condition, and now I got to laugh about it. Not that. You can do that voluntarily, of course. But if you find anything to laugh about, anything out there to laugh about, then that creates a sense of liberation, and that laughter and the pain, it's hard for them to occupy the same space at the same time.
Welcome to Caritas Project. I'm Gloria Guidu, and Caritas is dedicated to promoting the evolution of consciousness as the key to individual growth and global healing. We draw from a wide assortment of ancient wisdom and leading-edge studies in science, consciousness, spirituality, healing, and philosophy. By hosting online presentations featuring guest speakers and offering classes and study groups also online. You can view over 150 of our guest speaker video recordings on our YouTube channel, which is Caritas Consciousness Project, or on our website, which is caritascenter.org. As a nonprofit, we rely on the support of our members and donors to keep us going. To support our program, you can make a donation or become a member with benefits on our website. And tonight, I'm excited to present once again our friend, Steve Bhaerman, and Swami Beyondananda. I should say friends, plural. Steve Bhaerman is an author, comedian, evolutionary solutionary, and cosmic comic commentator. For the past 40 years, he's been writing and performing comedy in the guise of Swami Beyondananda, whose work has been described as comedy disguised as wisdom, and wisdom disguised as comedy. Author Marianne Williamson has called him the Mark Twain of our times, as Steve and Swami are dedicated to using humor to heal the heart and free the mind. On the more serious side, he's co-authored with Bruce Lipton of this wonderful book, Spontaneous Evolution, Our Positive Future and a Way to Get There from Here, an international bestseller, which is now in 26 languages, a pioneer in transpartisan engagement. Steve is co-host of Front and Center, From Political Battlefields to Cooperative Playing Fields with Michael Maxenti, and writes a weekly Substack post, Signs of the Upwising. Okay, and that's those are the two links that I sent you. One is to buy the book, which is also available on Amazon. But if you want a signed copy, then you can buy it. You can click on the link that's in the chat and buy the Spontaneous Evolution book. The other link is the Substack post, Signs of the Upwising. And he's also writing his autobiography in installments called Travels with Swami, A Wiser Guy's Journey from New Age to Old Age. Welcome, Swami Beyondananda, and thank you so much for being here with us this evening.
It's great to be here. And guess what? We have no choice, because no matter where we are, we're always here, and it's always now, right? And
Right.
by the way, I predict that living in the now will be the wave of the future, and time itself will become a thing of the past. I can assure you, the calendar's days are numbered.
Swami, I have a question. How did you become a Swami?
Well, people ask me all the time if I'm a real Swami, and you know what? I pinched myself this morning, and sure enough, I'm real. Now, what Swami means is one who has mastered themselves. And at some point, I figured out nobody could be a better me than I could. And I was looking for my guru, and I looked in the mirror, and then it came to me. The universe spelled it out for me. Guru, G-U-R-U, 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 right? So I'm a self-made Swami. I pulled myself up by my own Buddha straps.
Okay, well, you've been on a spiritual path for a long time. What's your spiritual philosophy and practice?
Well, to reiterate what you said, I tried so many spiritual paths, I was pathological. In fact, I expanded my mind so much, I could no longer fit through my door, had to go to a shrink. Okay, but I finally found my path, and I called it fundamentalism, with the accent on the fun, not to be confused with fundamentalism, accent on the mental, right? But now the fundamentalists, they say heaven is above us. The fundamentalists say heaven is where we make it. So let's go for heaven on earth just for the hell of it. Because we are not here to earn God's love, we're here to spend it. So that is my philosophy.
I see. That's a good philosophy. And your practice, do you teach any kind of meditative practice or?
Well, you know what? I think, one of the problems that we have, given that we have so many dueling narratives coming at us through the mainstream media, which is a brainwashing machine stuck on spin, by the way, that we create a condition called truth decay. Now, 4 out of 5 transcendentists recommend mental floss to prevent truth decay. So if you're watching the news, if you're listening to any commentary, when you're done, back and forth twice a day, you'll prevent truth decay.
That sounds like a good practice.
Yes, it is.
We seem to be experiencing a confluence of crises coming to a head right now. How do we find our way forward in these challenging times?
Well, it has been said that crisis precipitates evolution. And if you look at the current crises that we're faced with, the chances of precipitation are 100%, right? Now, I know that there are people who are feeling so much despair. They're looking at the world, new word, the situation. They're looking at the situation, and they're asking, is this the hand of God at work or just the middle finger, right? So people are getting very, very upset. And so in the my philosophy is this: when everything comes to a head, the best thing to do is come to the heart.
Mm.
Because in the head, we have these dueling dualities, these belief systems. The acronym is BS, right, for belief system. These belief systems that keep us separated. So we need to leave the static of the head for the ecstatic of the heart, right? The more we
Beautiful.
expand our hearts, the less we're going to need to shrink our heads.
And it's been said that that journey from the head to the heart is the longest journey many people will take.
Yes, that's very, very true because we live in a very mental culture. And by the way, the power of laughter is really very helpful because there's often an aha in the wake of the ha-ha. And then there's an ah as we
Mhm.
leave the head for the heart. So remember, beliefs lie in our heads, truth lives in our heart. So if you're tired of having all these lies in your head, time to laugh it off and release that through we call it cosmic comic consciousness.
Yeah, it's true, actually. Seriously, the head can lie to us. We can't believe everything we think, right? But
Yes.
the heart never lies.
You
So,
know what people believe is unbelievable, first of all. But that unity of the heart, that is where we are all connected. And the heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. That's my philosophy.
uh, so what do we do about all this polarization?
Well, we are in a definitely in a situation which you call bipolar insanity. And we have a deeply divided body politic in this country. Half the people believe the system is broken, the other half believe it's fixed. Okay, you're not laughing because that's not funny. But but seriously, one of the things that we need to do is we need to bring people together. I've been traveling around on what I call my love and laughter tour. Some of the shows are online, some of them are live. Because the philosophy is what the world needs now is love and laughter. That's the only thing our hearts are truly after. And so, as Benjamin Franklin didn't quite say, it's much better to laugh together than to cry separately. So, what we want to do is bring people together in the same room to laugh together at the same things, to laugh at our universal human foibles. And by the way, laughing at yourself really works. But my philosophy is laugh at yourself, and the whole world will laugh at you too. So that's very important. We call it self-facing laughter. Lovingly laugh in your own face, laugh in the face of your ego. And by the way, if you would like to release the grip of the ego, a simple three-word mantra. It's so simple you won't believe it. It goes like this: ego, egoing, egon. There you go.
I like that. Um, so, Swami, can you help us communicate with a loved one on the other side?
Well, which side, Democrat or Republican? No, I'm saying, we've been divided into these red tribe Republicans, blue tribe Democrats who spend all of their energy arguing about whether it is worse to kill the born or the unborn. Meanwhile, the Commonwealth has been stolen by a very small group of the uncommonly wealthy, and the
Mm,
bill has been sent to the not yet born. So my whole philosophy, and I'll talk about the great uprising later. My whole philosophy is let's bring left and right, front and center, to face the music and dance together to turn the funk into function and leave the junk at the junction.
mm,
Imagine red tribe and blue tribe sitting together in sacred circle, like the native peoples do, sitting in
yeah.
sacred circle, talking until they're all purple in the face. Because
Mm.
only by being together as one purple people will the peeps outnumber the perps.
Yeah. Yeah. Red and blue make purple, right? Yeah, that reminds me of my grandson when he was about 3 years old. His favorite color was purple. And one day he was getting dressed and he put on one red sock and one blue sock. And I said, he had a purple t shirt and a purple shorts, but he didn't have purple socks. And he said, if I run really fast, it'll look like the socks are purple.
Oh, that is a very smart kid. Just beware of the purple people eater. Don't worry about that.
Yeah. um, so, what is your secret to happiness and equanimity?
Well, if it's a secret, if I tell you, it won't be a secret anymore. Let me tell you about the happiest individual I ever met that I learned so much from. He was a psychiatrist, and he glowed. His face was almost like there was sunshine coming out of his face. That's how happy he was. And he had gray hair, and I knew he'd been practicing for a long time. I said, "You're a psychiatrist, right?" He goes, "That's right." I said, "And you've been practicing for a while?" He says, 25 years. I said, "How could you listen to people's problems for 25 years and look the way you do?" And he said, "Who listens?" So I learned a lot from that. And then also there is the issue of mindfulness. See, this is part of equanimity is mindfulness, because again, we're being inundated with so much information that we're suffering from mindfulness, and we have to empty the mind through mindfulness. So I went to a great mindfulness teacher. He said, if you want to be peaceful, want to have equanimity, here's the secret. First of all, you have to clear your mind of all thoughts. Let them just go. Watch them go, like let them go. Second is focus on the center of yourself. And I did it and it worked. I am now thoughtless and self-centered.
Oh dear. Well, okay. That's an interesting frame of mind to be in, if it makes you happy. So, have you achieved enlightenment?
Well, you never know when enlightenment can strike, that's for sure. And, it is an internal state. It's an internal state. So there are people who, they may be enlightened, we don't know it. So, as the saying goes, before enlightenment, do the laundry. After enlightenment, do the laundry, but it's 40% brighter. See? And actually, I may or may not be enlightened, but I achieved what they call fool realization. I realized I am a fool, and there's nothing to do but laugh about it, right? And that's how I found my path of fundamentalism, because after all, we've heard that laughter is healing. You've heard that, right? Maybe you heard the story about Norman Cousins, the writer, maybe in the 1970s, diagnosed with a life-threatening illness, and instead of going to the hospital, he checked into the hotel room with Marx Brothers movies and candid camera reruns, and he got well. And when he healed himself, the medical establishment decided that they are going to study the healing power of laughter, which is kind of like, well, it works in practice, but does it work in theory? Seriously, seriously.
Right, right.
And when they studied the physiology of humor, they found that when we laugh, it creates these endorphins called it creates endorphins, which actually are our body's natural painkillers, right? Laughing, they found out, improves our immune system function. Laughter lowers the blood pressure. Did you know?
Yeah.
Because when we laugh, it causes our blood vessels to dilate better than having them die early. And something else, laughing burns calories. So I'm starting a new program. It's called Laugh Your Ass Off. Very, very, very popular.
So I understand you are spearheading a movement that you're calling the Great Upwising. Can you tell us about it?
Well, first of all, I want to be clear about something. I don't believe in spearheading, because I get the point. I get the point, but I don't want to be the head of the spear. So I'm a round-headed guy. I call it spearheading. I'm spearheading this new movement because we want to invite everybody into the circle. It's called the Great Upwising. It's a four-step political recovery movement. 4 steps guaranteed to work 3 times faster than 12-step. Okay? 4 steps. Wake up, wise up, grow up, and show up. Wake up to the illusion of separation. We've been divided and into these camps and separated. We've been hoodwinked by a bunch of winking hoods, right? Second step, wise up to the power of love, the coherent power of love, that field, the field of the heart, right? The heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. Love is more powerful than fear. Otherwise, we'd be singing, all you need is fear, right? He fears you, yeah, yeah, yeah. We're not singing that. That's good. Okay. The third step is grow up. Grow up from children of God to adults of good. We are in this awkward state of evolution called adult essence. Our essence has been addled by toxic and divisive beliefs. So we need to grow up and grow upward in wisdom. Finally, show up. Show up on a new playing field, ready to play a new game, thrival for each and all. And that's the new playing field. Now, this is really interesting. Anybody can take this play. Oh, we have a 5th step that's going to make it a lot easier. The 5th step is take a vow of levity. Yeah. So I invite you, all those willing to take a vow of levity, please rise to the occasion and repeat after me. All for fun.
All for fun.
And fun for all.
Fun for all.
Yes, and that is how we wake up laughing and leave laughter in our wake.
Okay, I like the levity. And does it ever result in levitation?
That's right. That's right. Because gravity, let's face it, gravity is a downer. Levity uplifts us off of the field. Now, over the years, people have come to me, they say, Swami, how can I uplift humanity? And they look like this. Okay, well, want to uplift humanity, begin by uplifting the corners of your mouth into a smile. This is called the levitational pull. And if you've read that wonderful book by Marcy Shimoff called Happy for No Reason, you find out that if you do this, you actually, by changing the muscular frame of your face into a smile, you actually secrete happiness hormones. So we're not happy. We don't smile because we're happy. We're happy because we smile. So even if you're feeling down in the dumps, uplift your corners of your mouth in a levitational pull, and everybody will go, I'll have what they're having.
Yeah, I was remembering. It's gone.
Oh, no, you can retrieve that thought. Now let me We've rewound. Now you can tell me what you rewind.
How close are we to putting a man on Mars or a woman? For that matter?
I see. This is where I have to say that if we're talking about you always hear about putting a man on Mars. How many times have you heard about putting a woman on Venus? Probably never, right? I think what we need to do first is put a mensch on Earth, right? We need to put a mensch. We need honorable mention and honorable people on this planet so that we become worthy of visiting other places. I think that we'd have more ETs visiting if it were better, In fact, I'm working on a new song called "Jesus is Coming and This Place is a Mess." So,
do you think there'll ever be peace in the Middle East?
Well, you know what? I think we have to take it step by step. Before we have peace in the Middle East, we need to create peace in the Middle West. We need to have that peace among all of the tribes in this country and begin to recognize that we're all part of one family. We're all one with the same one. The universal oneness, the universe surrounds us, might as well surrender. So I think it's very important that we first take that step. But I was praying myself for peace in the Middle East for a long time. And perhaps you know the story. It's a true story about a man. He lived in Jerusalem. Every day for 25 years, rain or shine, no matter how he felt, he would go to the Wailing Wall and pray for peace. Every day. Very modest man, didn't want any recognition. But a reporter from the Jerusalem Post found out about this man, and she was very kind. She didn't want to disturb him. She said, "Excuse me, sir, I understand that you go to the Wailing Wall every day to pray for peace." He says, "Yes." And she says, "And you've done this for 25 years? He says, "Just about 25 years. You've never missed a day?" "I've never missed a day." She says, "Tell me, what's it like going to the Wailing Wall every day for 25 years to pray for peace?" He says, "It's like talking to a wall."
Hasn't happened yet, right?
Yeah, but you see, I in my prayers now, I found myself traveling on a higher plane. Now, of course, on the higher planes, if they lose your baggage, who cares? You don't need it for the next lifetime. But I'm traveling on a higher plane. I'm sitting next to this guy. He looks very, very familiar. Okay, "You look very familiar." He says, "Yes, I am George Gershwin." I go, "George Gershwin, the composer?" He says, "Yes." I said, "What are you doing these days?" And he says, "Decomposing." He had a great sense of humor.
Yeah.
But he told me, he said, "I've been watching the affairs of this planet, since my time. And I feel very sad and very upset that we have the Israelis and the Palestinians. They're cousins. Their languages are so similar, and yet they cannot seem to make peace to save their lives." So he gave me a gift that I'm going to share with you. He gave me a song for peace in the Middle East. And it goes like this. You say salam and I say shalom. You throw a bomb, I blow up your home. Salam, shalom, we blow up our home. Let's call the old thing off. I say baraka, you say baruka. I spin the dreidel, you toke the hookah. Baruka, baraka, this warfare, it's kaka. Let's call the old thing off. And oh, if we call the old thing off, we'll all be right. And so, if we all are right, well, there's no need to fight. I eat the kasha, you eat the kibbe. We both dig falafel, but never pork ribby. To kasha, to kibbe, forget the pork ribby. At least there's one thing we agree on. Haven't we had enough? Let's call the old thing off. Oh, yeah. Let's call the old thing off. Uh-huh. Let's call the old thing off.
It's a great song. Wow, that's a great song.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Porky Pig says, "Amen." He says, "Yeah, that's helpful."
He's glad they don't eat pork.
That's right. He's happy. He likes those people.
Yeah.
He got no beef with them.
My mother used to tell a joke about a rabbi and a priest in a bar. And the priest said to the rabbi, "Tell me the truth. Before you became a rabbi, weren't you curious? Didn't you ever have a piece of pork to see what you'd be missing?" And the rabbi said, Yes. When I was a young man, I wanted to see what it tasted like. I had a piece of ham." And the priest said, "Wasn't it delicious?" And the rabbi said, "Yes, it was very good." And then the rabbi said to the priest, "Now you tell me the truth. before you became a priest, didn't you ever sleep with a woman just to see what you'd be missing? And the priest said, yes, when I was a young man, before I took my vows, I slept with a woman. I wanted to see what I'd be missing. And the rabbi said, wasn't it better than eating pork? Okay.
I like that. That's a good one. Very good. Very good. Very good. Very good.
Okay. So I know you're not an economist, but we value your wisdom anyway, Swami. How do we improve the overall economy?
How do we improve the overall economy? It's simple. More people wearing overalls. When more people wore overalls, the economy was better. Because now
Yes.
we have an economy based on derivatives of derivatives of derivatives of derivatives. There was an economist back in the 1930s named Carl Wilkin. You could look him up. And he said that all new wealth comes from the soil. So if you want to think about this, an economy that is based on food, relocalize growing food, because food comes up, it is natural wealth, it's natural abundance. The farmer harvests the food, sells the food, and instead of having a trickle-down economy, we have a bubble-up economy. You know, trickle down. That's why they call the people at the bottom peons, if you know what I mean, right? Oh, something trickling down, right? So, so the bubble-up economy is based on growing food that is consumable. Of
Yeah.
course, that excludes the breatharians, of course, but do you know any breatharians?
No. Do
Uh,
you?
well, yes, because when I went to the Ascended Masters Golf Tournament in the Himalayas, where Buddha, by the way, got a wholeness and oneness, I should say, um, because there are beings there who are so evolved, they don't need to eat anymore.
Mm.
They exist on breath alone. Well, somebody got the idea to open up a breatharian restaurant. They don't serve any food, but boy, the atmosphere is terrific, right? So I'm serious. I'm sitting there and I see three guys walking by. They have close to their noses like this. They were fasting. They were fasting. One of them, you're not going to believe this, one of them is so evolved. Not only doesn't he eat food, he doesn't drink water either. His name
Wow.
is Pierre.
Pierre.
See, that's time release. That's time release. Tomorrow you'll laugh for no reason. That's time release.
Okay, so let's see. I understand you've uncovered the secret to living to 150. What advice do you have about living longer and being healthier?
Well, I mean, there's a number of different questions in there. First of all, the new book is going to be called "How to Live to Be 150 and Never Look a Day Over 100." That's the book title, and the answer is so simple you won't believe it. Simply postpone your midlife crisis until you're 75. Problem solved. Now, diet does play a role. The best thing for older people to eat, elderberries, right? Doesn't that make sense? If more elders ate elderberries, they'd be burying fewer elders. Okay, so that's a secret. And of course, it's been said that one of the signs that you're a long liver is that your liver is longer. So we have liver elongation exercises for everybody. I know it's a stretch.
And that's the diet you recommend.
Well, there are many different, we'll call them diet tribes, where people have different ways of eating. I mean, there's the vegan diet. My late friend, bless his heart, John Robbins, was set to inherit the Baskin Robbins ice cream fortune, and he said no. You know why? He didn't
No.
want to be a derriere. And so he promoted the vegan diet and so on, and that's good.
Ah.
Yeah, that's good. Then of course my guru, one of my gurus, when I studied in Texas, actually advocated eating beef, and his name was Barbecue. So there's many different diatribes, different things. But you have to focus on that which is your best diet. It doesn't matter what everybody else says. What is your best diet? So I think I landed for myself on the mucus-free diet because let's face it, mucus is the easiest thing to give up.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. What other questions might I have? Swami, how do you explain the suffering of all those on the planet who don't have enough to eat?
Well, that is pretty easy to explain. What is harder to explain is the suffering on the planet of all the people who have plenty to eat.
Mm.
And I think that's a function of how we make ourselves unhappy, by focusing on the negative. So um, I think that we need to release a lot of our attachment. I believe I followed the nomad lifestyle. That's right. I nomad at you, you nomad at me, and then we have no madness on the planet.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good plan. Um, what do you see as the biggest problem facing humanity today?
I would call it eracism. Eracism. Eracism is where one race wants to erase another race, and the race they're looking to erase is now racing to erase them before they get erased. So we now have a mutually assured destruction program of two tribes trying to erase one another. And so the solution would be for each tribe to recognize that they don't need to listen to the eracists on their side. We need to gather around the sane and sacred center where we are all in this together, where we recognize that the purpose of being alive on the planet is for each of us to let our light completely shine. And that is called fulfillment. And when everybody's filament is full, there's no need to fight other people over the crumbs. We all can win. It's a win-win-win solution. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Swami, you're proposing a sane world. You must be crazy. Well, I recommend that we all commit ourselves to a sane asylum. And the best place to go sane together is by laughing, love and laughter together. Spread it around. Make it contagious. Make it the new virus that everybody catches.
Sounds like a good plan. Do you believe in reincarnation?
Do I? Well, as a matter of fact, I'm what they call a born again, 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 born again Krishna. And I believe in the born again, born again, born again, born again Krishna Credo, which is you only go around 50 million times, so grab the gusto. Now, I don't know. I don't want to take a survey, but if you don't believe in reincarnation, don't worry, you will in your next lifetime. Now, very interesting that you asked the question, Gloria, because I don't know if you remember your past lives, but we had several significant lives together. We were lamas in Tibet. Remember that one? Actually, you were a llama. I was a yak. And a yak is, of course, a talking llama. We sat at the feet of the Buddha. And, here you are. I mean, you're questioning me, and of course, you're an interviewer. I hope this doesn't embarrass you, but every time the Buddha would sit to meditate, you would interrupt him with a question. And they ended up naming a city after you. Budapest.
Uh, okay, well,
Nothing
yes,
personal.
I remember seeing a cartoon about a little boy talking to his grandfather, and he said, "When I was an old man, I didn't believe in reincarnation either."
They're very evolved. That's very evolved.
So how do we stay sane in these crazy times?
Well, the way to stay sane in the crazy times is to make sure that you actually activate your cosmic comic consciousness. Now, I read that the average child laughs 100 times a day. Average adult, not that much. So, if you've gone a day without laughing, that's a condition called irregular hilarity. You need a good laxative every day. And if you sign up to be on my list, I will send you a daily laxative, a joke every day to brighten your smile. Now, there are people who have gone a week without laughing, and that puts them in danger of hemorrhoids. Oh my God, you don't want hemorrhoids. Hemorrhoids is an enlargement of the onus, where the only thing you're ever able to pass is heavy judgments. You don't want that. So what you want to do is you want to find reasons to laugh, find things. We call it situational comedy. Situational comedy, something happening out in the world that you find something to laugh about. Um, I am doing a course called Wake Up Laughing and Leave Laughter in Your Wake. If you sign up for my list, I'll tell you more about when that's going to happen. But I think it's very, very important because you become a bright light to light up other people because the world situation can be depressing. They can be depressing. And so laughing at that situation is not a form of denial, it's a form of radical acceptance and embracing the world and bringing joy and bringing light to it. And let's face it, the comedy is a great way to enlighten the endarkened corridors of power. So it's a great tool to have in dark times because it's a way of spreading the light and spreading lightness. Lose weight, lose weightiness, all the same.
I couldn't agree more. Oh, shall we do a Q&A with you, Swami?
Okay, good. I'm wanted for questioning. I got plenty of answers. All I need are questions.
Okay, so let's see if anyone has a question. I've been asking quite a few. Does anyone have a question for Swami before Steve appears?
Well,
Jeff has his hand up. Let's hear from Jeff.
Well, how do we get on your mailing list for the joke of the day?
Oh, okay. Just go to join the uprising, and at that part you scroll down, and there's a place you can sign up, and for free you get the daily laxative.
Okay, great.
It's in the chat box.
And
the link
is in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
No, I see. That's Robin. That the hand that you're waving?
Robin, do you have your hand up? If you do, you just have to unmute. What about nothing?
What? What
Robin,
about nothing?
Put in the chat, she wrote, "What about nothing?"
Well, you know what? Nothing is as the ultimate enlightenment tool because no matter what your problem is, nothing is guaranteed to solve it right away. And so for people, actually years ago, I actually put nothing in a box. You can probably see it right here. A box of absolutely nothing. A woman came to me and said, Swami, nothing satisfies my husband. I said, great, buy him some. As you can see, there's a hole in the box, so you can see exactly how much nothing you have left. Up here, you got plenty of nothing. Down here, time to get more. So, and we've expanded our line of products. We now have Swami's Ultimate Meditation Tape, completely blank. If you hear anything while listening to it, it's all in your own head. We've expanded our product line because now these days a lot of people are actually have allergies. They're allergic to. They're sensitive to scents. They can't be around perfumes and all that. So we have created the world's first completely odorless cologne. We call it nonsense. And our slogan is, this product makes no sense whatsoever. Okay,
Jen has a question.
Okay.
How can we use meditation to encourage humor?
Okay. Well, meditation is very, very powerful, particularly when done in groups. There was a worldwide meditation for peace. I believe that there were 5 million people tuned in for this 1 hour meditation and peace. And you won't believe what happened. During that meditation for peace, not one act of violence was committed by anyone who was meditating.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that that meditation is really good. It calms the mind. You see, one of the things about humor is that the best way to do humor is by not trying, by creating a space so that jokes can come in. We call it creating a farce field. And if you create a farce field, then jokes will automatically happen. I'll give you an example. I was doing a program for medical doctors at a medical center, and it was called the Physician Wellness Program, which was, of course, an oxymoron. None of these people looked very well. And they were all very stressed out. And I'm noticing that most of them are from third world countries. It was in California at a medical center. I'm doing my thing. But the universe decided to do a cosmic comic intervention. I'm in the middle of my talk, and over the PA we hear, "Your attention, please. Your attention, please. Will the owner of a white Explorer, license number BK3-450, please move your vehicle? You're blocking traffic." Swami looked up at the PA and looks at these third world people. He says, I've always thought that most of the problems in this world have been caused by white explorers. So every now and then, the universe will set you up with a straight line so that you can offer a joke. So if you're in the space, immersing yourself in humor, read things that are funny, listen to your favorite funny comedy, watch your favorite comedy on TV, and laugh. It's more fun to do this with friends, right? Mm-hmm. So the meditation part is to simply begin the process of breathing, because laughter enhances breathing too. And as you know, breathing is the key to long life. We breathe in, we inspire, we don't, we expire.
Anybody else before
the turban comes off?
Yeah, before Steve.
Yeah, right now, Steve Bhaerman is channeling me, and in a few minutes, I'll be channeling him.
Okay, all right. Well, let's move on to Steve then. I don't see anybody else.
I'm gonna find a phone booth and disappear for just a minute. And then when I come back, I'll be somebody else.
Okay. Yes, I should do a song and dance, right? Maybe.
Christo.
There he is.
Yeah, I can't help it. I'm in a place where the shades are. I'm looking like a shady character, but
yeah, you look like a convict with stripes on. An escaped convict.
Yeah. Well, I got a lot of bookings, but I've never been convicted. Look at my white beard. That's kind of cool.
So, Steve,
anyway,
welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing Swami to amuse us, as he always does. And I see that you're doing programs on defying gravity, using levity to uplift in unfunny times. So just how do we do that? What do you say to people who suggest that humor in the face of tragedy is some kind of spiritual bypass.
Well, I think that not everything is funny. I think it's really important to recognize that there are things that are not funny. But many years ago, I read a book that was transformational for me. It was called Laughter in Hell, Humor in the Holocaust. And it talked about how people used humor in the most dire of circumstances. In fact, Viktor Frankl wrote a book, Man's Search for Meaning, and he
Yes.
said that he was in a Nazi death camp. He and a fellow inmate made a pact that every day they would find something to laugh about, because that was how they would be preserving their humanity and staying human and staying sane in a very inhuman, insane situation. And I remember one of the jokes that actually circulated in the camps involved these two Jewish guys who decide they're going to assassinate Hitler. They know his motorcade is going to pass this one intersection at 11 in the morning, and they're waiting for him. 11 in the morning, he's not there. 11:15, doesn't show up. When he's not there by 11:30, one of the assassins turns to the other and says, "Gee, I hope nothing's happened to him." So in a certain regard, having the power of humor in something like that gives you leverage, or we call it leverage, to be able to be in a situation that's dark and yet be a light for other people. Not the same as pretending that the problem doesn't exist or making fun of people. This defying gravity is about our collective human foibles. It's about laughing at ourselves. That's what it's really about. Because if you laugh at yourself, then you invite other people. Abraham Lincoln was a genius at this. We would call that self-facing humor. He was involved in he was in a debate. His opponent called him two-faced, and he said, "If I had two faces, would I be using this one?" So it's disarming. You can disarm people by making jokes about yourself.
Yes, I heard another story about Abe Lincoln where he was in his carriage, in a buggy, driving a buggy with his horse, and it was raining. It was raining very hard, and he comes to this bridge, or I think it was a bridge or a narrow part of the trail, and there's another carriage coming from the opposite direction. And one of them has to make way for the other. And in making way for the other, they could very well get stuck in the mud on the side of the road. And so Abe Lincoln stands up, and he's really, really tall, right? And he says to the other driver, he says, "You better move over or else." And the other driver says, "Or else what?" And he says, "Or else I'll have to." Moves over. But the other guy moves over.
Yeah, see, that's exactly, I hadn't heard that one. That's a good one. I like that.
Yeah, or else I'll have to. I really think that humor is a tremendous balancing force. I know in Brazil, where my parents came from, and where I've spent many weeks, many visits, the harder things get, the more they find things to laugh at. It just seems like a natural tendency for them. And I've always admired that, because I think it really is important. So I understand that this book that you wrote with Bruce Lipton, who, by the way, in case anybody isn't familiar with Bruce Lipton, he wrote a wonderful book called The Biology of Belief, which we read in a study group years ago. So this book was written by the two of you, Spontaneous Evolution, Our Positive Future, and a Way to Get There from Here. I understand it's a worldwide bestseller, translated into 26 languages. How does that book apply to our current world situation?
Well, first of all, to go back in history, about 20 years ago, Bruce published Biology of Belief, which was at that time one of the best-selling self-published books in the world. It was a book whose time has come. The idea of his time has come, and it was about how our beliefs impact our physiology and the outpicturing of our lives. So I met Bruce, I believe it was February of 2005, so it's 20 years ago. And some friends wanted to connect us, and so we spent a weekend with he and his wife in Santa Cruz, and we just laughed the whole time. We just laughed and laughed and laughed, and we just became friends. And we started a conversation because he also, my background is in political science, although I have to confess, I never got as far in the field to actually dissect a politician. Never quite got there. Never quite got that far. But we talked. He was an American history buff himself, and we started talking about how we could write about applying the biology of belief to our collective beliefs. And the original title for our book was The American Evolution. But since Bruce has been teaching in New Zealand every year for the last 20 something years, we decided to make it international as as spontaneous evolution. So right now we're at the point where we've got two dueling limiting belief systems. One of them is the dominant belief system right now is scientific materialism, and you mentioned earlier that you wanted to ask about transhumanism. Scientific materialism believes that only the material world is real and everything else is not. Prior to that, we had monotheism, which believes in a transcendent God. So we have these two dueling belief systems that are fighting each other. And there is an emerging belief system right now, which is holism, which is that, yes, the material world is real, obviously. We have to make changes in the material world. Yes, science is real, but there is this invisible field. And so what Einstein said is that the field is the sole governing power over the particle. And so part of the breakthrough in spontaneous evolution is from Bruce's standpoint, is he debunks what we called myth, M-Y-T-H, myth perceptions. He called them the four myth perceptions of the apocalypse. Number one, only matter matters. Only the material world is real. Number two, survival of the fittest. It's really thrival of the fittingest. That cooperation is really the way forward. Number three is that our destiny is in our genes, and that it's the whole field that Bruce helped launch called epigenetics is really about how the environment and our thoughts and beliefs impact our genetics. So our destiny is not in our genetics; it's in our behavior and our environment.
And our response to our environment.
Exactly. It's funny. When we were doing our book, we read this article. It was a study that they found the violence gene, that there's a gene for violence. Well, guess what? How does the violence gene get activated? When a child is physically abused violently, that activates the violence gene. Well, if there was no violence on the kid, that violence gene would stay dormant. So we call that irony deficiency. They didn't quite get how ridiculous that was. And then the final belief system is that evolution is random, and actually evolution is intentional. That otherwise, we'd be here because of an infinite number of monkeys typing on an infinite number of typewriters will create the Bible.
Mhm.
You know, so I think that part of that we talk about the split between science and religion back in the days of enlightenment, where science got custody of the physical world and religion got custody of the spiritual world. And so here we are, we have these two ways of thinking, like the masculine and the feminine, by the way, that could be dynamic duo dance partners, but instead have been set one against the other. So the outpicturing of our society, yeah, where we've pretty much woven ourselves outside the web of life by weaving ourselves outside the web of love, um, is a function of this disproven belief system that we're still operating by. So this book is a call. The last section, which is the solution section of the book, is called "Changing the Guard and Regrowing the Garden," because our new mission for humanity is to regrow the garden from the grassroots up and have a heaven of a time doing it.
Mhm. Well, and I'd like to let our audience know that you have agreed to return to Caritas on September 19th to have a conversation on the topic of that book. And I'm excited to do that. I will have lots of good questions for you on the book. Yes, I'm excited about that because
Good. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, because we need this right now. We need to apply everything we can to what's happening in the world today. And
one more thing on that, where the title came from. There's this phenomenon of spontaneous remission where it's an anomaly. Somebody has been sent home basically to get their affairs in order. They're going to die. It's inevitable. And then something happens. There's a change of heart. There's a change of mind. There's a change of venue. Something occurs and the disease just goes away spontaneously. And quote unquote, science can't explain this. It happens outside the domain of linear chemistry or even energy medicine. And so, in looking at the world situation, looking at the confluence of crises, we realize that what is required now for our entire species is a spontaneous remission. But it's an active evolution. It's not something that's passive. It's like my joke. Of course, Jesus believed in evolution. Otherwise, he would have said, "Now, don't do a thing till I get back." So this is our opportunity as a species to evolve collectively through spontaneous remissioning, to change our mission from it's me or you to we're all in this together. Or as Jesus said, love God, love thy neighbor. We call that the one strong suggestion. We don't need commandments with that one strong suggestion.
Exactly. I agree. So tell us about the Great Uprising. Swami presented it in a humorous form, but I sense there's a serious movement behind it.
Well, the idea, this is taking off from spontaneous evolution, and that it's an uprising. Back in history, when people were dissatisfied, there'd be a revolutionary uprising to overthrow the system. This is an evolutionary uprising to overgrow the system, because revolution is like the turning of the wheel of karma. It's the same on merry-go-round. Meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Same kind of thing. So it keeps us on the wheel revolving. Revolution, counter-revolution, uprising, and downfall. The uprising is to get off the battlefield entirely, to step away from the battlefield of me against you and begin to look at how we're all in this together. The serious project that I've been working on, because I used the uprising as a playful way to describe it, I'm working with a colleague, Richard Flyer, on a book called Birthing the Symbiotic Age, Ancient Blueprint for a New Creation. And I met Richard about 20 years ago because I heard about the project he was doing in Reno, Nevada, called the Conscious Community Network. And it was at the time when the big box stores were invading these towns like Reno. And so he was part of a peace group. And this is around the time of the Iraq War. And there was polarization then, not as bad as we have it now, but there was plenty of polarization. And he and his little group said, what can we do to bring the people of Reno together? And they brought in their friends and they had the conversation. And they said, how about a buy local network to improve the local economy? And so what happened was they created a buy local campaign that totally transformed Reno. They didn't fight the big box stores. They didn't picket Walmart. They just overgrew it. They, instead of being on the battlefield against it, as Bucky Fuller would say, created something that was more compelling than what you want to replace, and people flocked to it. So within a couple of years, they had really vastly improved the economy in Reno. And then they created a local food network. There was land around Reno that was set to be developed into condos and strip malls. Never happened because the demand for local food was so strong. And it was radically inclusive. It included people regardless of their political beliefs, regardless of their ideological beliefs. And so Richard's book is about that. It's about how to create networks that are relational networks that bring silos together to give us what we all want together. And his work was based on, perhaps people have heard of Dr. Ariyaratne in Sri Lanka, who created a project called Sarvodaya back in 1958, where he worked with the most untouchable of the untouchables there to help them gain agency and have economic sovereignty. Their slogan was, we build the road and the road builds us. And so now there's 5,000 villages with Sarvodaya societies. They have their own schools, their own banks, their own local community centers, etc., etc. When they had their food crisis in 2022, political crisis, Sarvodaya helped feed everybody in Sri Lanka. It's a non-governmental, it's not a nonprofit, it's an informal organization that allows people to collaborate and cooperate. So
are they still considered untouchables?
No, you can touch them now.
But no, I mean, are they still?
No, they've actually brought them, they've actually elevated themselves to where they have financial sovereignty. They have their own businesses. They have their own, when Richard was there a few years ago, he sent me videos of, their people are growing, let's say, aloe plants. Well, they have an aloe business. All of the businesses are based on what they're growing on their own. So here in this country, in the 60 years since the inception of the war on poverty, it's $4 trillion has been spent on the war on poverty. A huge success. The war on poverty is over. The poor people have all surrendered. But what that $4 trillion did was it created an infrastructure for poverty management rather than create agency for the poor people. So what Dr. Ari did in Sri Lanka is, my joke is, they pulled themselves up by their own Buddhist straps. It's a Buddhist country, using the four, because nobody was dealing with these people. They were just, in the gutter, dirt poor. And Dr. Ari, who at 1958 was a young teacher, he brought his students, middle-class students, to these villages, this one village in particular, where he started, to help these people help themselves. And in the process of building the road built them. they practice these virtues of these Buddhist virtues of compassion, of kindness, of, I like this one, taking joy in the joy of others. Isn't that a good one? I like that one.
Taking joy.
Taking joy in the joy of others.
Mm,
When other people are happy, being happy for them. Isn't that cool?
right.
You
Yeah.
know? So
Yeah.
what happened was these people, when Richard was visiting there several years ago, he's in this one village and he's talking to one of the people who's a city councilman or whatever. And Richard asked, does Sarvodia run candidates for office? And the guy said, they don't have to, because it's so much permeated the entire villages that they're automatically part of Sarvodia. In other words, they're automatically presenting in the public square this culture of self-development by developing community and developing other people.
It's beautiful.
So this is a template in these times of polarization. This is what the uprising is based on. It's fractal evolution. Because I think that a lot of times, my joke is we know that peace is at hand when all the peace groups get along with each other. Right? So
right.
It's a lot of these great ideas that are not grounded in reality. Well, Richard's work is based on the work of Dr. Ari, whose work is based on Gandhi, who was influenced greatly by the Sermon on the Mount. And so in writing this book, Richard has gone back to study the early Christian communities, which were trying to live this love God, love thy neighbor. And they were remarkable in that the Romans these people don't care if you're part of their tribe, they'll take care of you as well, even though you're not part of the tribe. So this is really that's the ancient blueprint, which is intentional mutual benefit, which takes the golden rule and extends it to being proactive. I am proactively looking for ways in this endeavor for everybody to benefit. So the great uprising happens, first of all, on the individual level, where we make our connection with the transcendent. We make our connection to God, however we call it, whatever we call it, divine love. And then secondly, that's the wake up. We wake up, oh my God, we've been separated. We wake up to the illusion of separation and how our civilization has done that to us. We wise up to the loving power of love and coherence, that we're so much better together. That's how these networks that Richard created in Reno created Thrival. They had a local Get to Know Your Neighbor network that was co-sponsored by the newspaper and the local radio stations. And they called it Liberating Frozen Assets, because all of these people who were below the radar, who were not being connected, who were suffering and nobody knew about it, they were mainly older people. And so there were networks that were created where teenagers started helping these older people. And this intergenerational bond happened informally through that. Rather than legislating it, it happened informally. So the uprising is about, waking up to how we've been separated, getting off the battlefield onto the new playing field of loving coherence, creating a sane and sacred center in every community, informally, to grow up and actually begin to take responsibility for our own lives and stop preaching the preach and start walking it, and then finally begin to populate these networks that actually connect the good in local communities on the ground.
And I like the quote that you referred to by Bucky Fuller is one of my favorites, where he said, "You never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete." I've always loved that quote.
And our slogan taken off of that is the Bucky starts here.
Yeah. And that's what they did. That's what you're describing, you know?
Yeah, it's happened. And the other, one more example is the parallel polis. Probably everybody on this call has heard of Václav Havel, who became the premier of Czechoslovakia. But prior to that, in the 70s and early 80s, while Czechoslovakia was under the rule of Soviet-style government, he and another Václav Benda, who was a Catholic, who believed in something called Catholic personalism. And what that means is, hey, we're all children of God. We're all fractals of the Creator. Why don't we treat each other like that? What a crazy idea. And so they, instead of fighting the dominant system, they created a parallel society where they began to have meetings, they began to read books together, they began to practice the old customs, they began to pray in the prohibited religion, they began to speak the truth because they were not allowed to speak the truth publicly. They began to create these little buying clubs and economic circles. And essentially, they created a replacement society to the point where when the Czech Republic failed after the fall of the Soviet Union, they had the system. Václav Havel became the premier. They had the system in place for serving the people rather than a top-down.
Well, I think the fact that it was Václav Havel at the helm had a lot to do with it too, because he was not a power-hungry, would-be autocrat. He was, I would say, quite an enlightened person. And I think one of the problems that we have right now, there's a wonderful book that Steve Taylor wrote called Disconnected. And
yes, I just saw something about that book. Yeah.
And I actually had him on the program to talk about it. And he talks about, there's like, he describes a kind of a spectrum from hyper connected, which means hyper connected to yourself, who you really are, right? Our spiritual essence, so to speak. Hyper connected is the extreme of that, of, someone who is enlightened, right? To hyper disconnected, which is someone who is a sociopath or a narcissist or a psychopath, right? And what he points out in the book is that the people who are hyper disconnected, and of course there's everyone in between, right? Most of us are somewhere in between. But the person who is hyper disconnected, it has an emptiness that they are trying to fill desperately, and they are craving power because they are full of fear. There's this emptiness that has to be filled. And they are the ones who, for the most part, who run for office because, or they go into big business, but they want power. They want, and in their view, power is money. It's external power. It's not authentic power that they want. It's external power. And the people who are connected or hyper connected, they don't crave power. So they don't go after, these leadership positions. And that is one of the problems. And he talks about how in certain indigenous societies, when they need a leader for something, they look for people with the qualities that they need for whatever the task is. but they disqualify anyone who is looking for power, who wants to be leader, right? That person is automatically disqualified because they know that person will be trouble. Well, I think if we did a better job of vetting our candidates, it could make a huge difference in, who gets to lead the country and where they lead them, where they lead us to.
Well, yeah, I think it's way deeper than that as well, and we're cultivating a culture of disconnection.
We are
Because of,
cultivating a
you were going to
culture.
talk about AI. I was, talking to some friends who have their daughter's she's pretty together, and she's almost 30, and they were saying that so many of her friends are they don't have any understanding of the sacred. There is no sense of the sacred. It
Mhm.
just disappears. It's just not there.
Mhm.
And we have a culture that promotes that lack of connection with the sacred. We have a culture where people have devolved into it replaced religion or replaced spirituality. They've devolved into these identities. And the identity might be a political identity, either left or right. It might be a identifying with a gender or lack of gender or a new gender or something like that. And they're looking for a sense of belongingness, but it doesn't have anything to do with the transcendent power of love. It has to do with wanting to be part of a group or part of a club. So, and also, I think that you've seen this, everybody on the call has seen this, that this narcissism is not something that's confined to, just people who are head of corporations or who run for office.
Right.
You see it in academia. You see it in people who are perhaps heads of peace organizations, but who
Mhm.
have are using their ego um, as a way of domination. And I've seen this my entire career of people who are in institutions that supposedly are working for the betterment of all, and they have that same susceptibility to um, that kind of wounding. So I
Mhm.
think that part of what Richard is working with in this book, we call it being a space holder. And Dr. Aryaratne is his model because you need to be a space holder to bring together people who may have disagreements about ideology or religion, but who all want the same thing. Oh, we all want healthy food.
Exactly.
So my jokey way of saying as part of the uprising is we need to, this is, if we need to move past the identity issues that separate us to the identical issues that unite us. Clean food, clean air, clean water, clean government. And what's happened is that the institutions have become sociopathic. Uh,
Yeah.
in that, and so it's not just the individuals. It's not like we need to not elect those kinds of people.
Well,
Um,
that would help.
yeah,
That would
but it's
definitely
that
help.
we have, but we don't have a way of cultivating leadership.
Mhm.
And many years ago, I did a benefit for John Kerry down um, in LA in 2020, and I got to meet, and I was, always been a Democrat in that regard. I got to meet some of the people, the younger people who are running for office there, who are kind of the up and comers, and I went, I'm sorry to say, a bunch of empty coats. They were empty coats. There was nobody home. And they were simply organization men, organization women, following the ambitious pathway to political success.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, there's a quote by Helen Keller
Yeah.
that I also like, where she says many persons have a wrong idea of what constitutes true happiness. It is not attained through self gratification, but through fidelity to a worthy purpose.
One of my great mentors, Joseph McCormick, transpartisan mentor, Back in the 2000s, he's a conservative, Christian Coalition, Army Rangers, but he had an epiphany. Or maybe it was an epiphany. Maybe it was an epiphany. Could have been epiphany again. But he had an epiphany. And he decided his mission was to reunite America. And he read Howard Zinn's History of America.
U.S. People's history.
And he went, wow, all this stuff I didn't know. So he expanded his view tremendously. So he got funding to create retreats for leaders, political leaders from different sides. And he put one together. I think Grover Norquist was there. Grover Norquist, of course, is the anti-tax conservative who wants to make government small enough to drown it in the bathtub. And then he had Cynthia McKinney, the radical Democratic leftist. He had Joan Blades from Move On, the Democrat organization, and Michelle Combs from Christian Coalition. Well, what happened was Michelle Combs and Joan Blades at this retreat, they became friends. They both had young children, and they created this Rising Mothers organization about motherhood. The two organizations, Christian Coalition and Move On, they took out a full-page ad in the New York Times to preserve net neutrality, and they had so many people that they closed down the switchboards of Congress with this transpartisan group because these two women became friends above and beyond the ideologies that would separate them. So it's not give up your ideology, you don't give up your belief system, but create a sacred space where you can take off your shoes and engage heart to heart. And that's really what the secret is. The heart of the matter is the matter of the heart. And so what happens is that the narratives that we have pulling us apart are all designed to capture the mind. And it's on both sides. It's on both sides. I'm an equal opportunity masochist. So I get communiques from all sides, and they're all the same. Did you see what those bastards did? Send us $3. So this is part of, I think, the awakening, the uprising.
Part of growing up is not blaming other people for what goes wrong, right? In, taking responsibility and being accountable for what you do.
That's the grow up phase of the uprising.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. There are a lot of people who have mastered that, whom I know, but there are a lot of people, especially a lot of people in power, who have not.
They live by that. They live by that. They live by that. And what happens is, if you're reading something from your political side, and you find yourself getting very angry or very scared, take a breath and step back and recognize that even if you agree with it, you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated emotionally. What happens is when you're put in fight or flight, and this is something that Bruce and I talk about in Spontaneous Evolution, when you're put in fight or flight, basically your energy goes away from the frontal cortex and goes to the hindbrain. Right. So you're put in more fear. It makes you less intelligent. It makes you less likely to see options. It makes you more likely to see in black and white. We rehumanize people that we've dehumanized because we associate them with another side.
Yeah. Well, Course in Miracles teaches that perception is projection, that what we perceive is actually a projection of our own, our own experience and our own imagining. And if we could understand that, if we could keep that in mind, then we wouldn't blame anyone else, and we wouldn't take things personally either when things happen, you know.
Or poison, we're going to take it poisonally. It reminds me of the story of the guy's applying to a job, and it's not a Rorschach test, but it's another personality test. And the interviewer draws a triangle and says, "What does this remind you of?" And the guy says, "Oh, it reminds me of sex." Okay. The interviewer draws a circle. "And what does this remind you of?" He says, "It reminds you of sex. Reminds me of sex." Finally, he draws a square. "What does this remind you of?" And the guy says, "It reminds me of sex." And the interviewer says, "Well, you certainly seem to be obsessed with sex." And the guy says, "What do you mean me? You're the one drawing all the dirty pictures."
That's
So
good.
I think there's a certain degree of truth to that projection.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you what your thoughts are on transhumanism, and maybe give us a little definition of it.
Well, from my understanding, I'm not an expert on this, but Richard and I did do some reading on it, particularly around Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil is he has been, I don't know if he still is, the research director for Google Foundation. And he happens to be somebody who wants to live forever. So his approach is that if I can transfer all of my thoughts and my brainwaves and everything to digital reality, and then maybe even make my body, digitize my whole body. So the idea behind transhumanism is that we merge with the machine and we become that machine. And then all of the mysteries of biology get handled, all of the human foibles disappear, and the only thing missing is the human soul, that's all.
And imagination and creativity
and yeah, you know, because again, when all problems are solved, what is there? There's no challenges anymore. It's sort of like you're in an ongoing system. Someone asked Ray Kurzweil in an interview, "Does God exist?" And he said, "Not yet." So these are the people who believe that man creates God. Now, it turns out that about 90% of the people on the planet right now believe in some transcendent higher power that's not material. You know, whether you call it God or divine love or great spirit, even people who identify as atheists still understand that there is this transcendent power. So the people who, the transhumanists, are looking to merge us with technology. Greg Braden, who you said you watched an interview with Greg, his new book, I think it's called Pure Human.
Pure Human, yeah. Pure Human.
Pure Human, yeah. Should be Poor Human, Pure Human. He's pointing out that when we implant these technologies in us that essentially take the place of our own perception, we then lose the power of accessing the transcendent. We lose the power of accessing the divine, whether you call it God or divine love. And so essentially, we become objects. We become objects rather than co-creators. Right. Swami says that we are the creator's creation, created to create. But what this would do is essentially we would lose touch with the human soul and simply become robots.
Yeah.
And
well,
so that's where
it
that's
negates. Leading. Yeah. It denies our humanity. It denies our essential ability to evolve. It denies the evolution of consciousness that we're capable of and our higher potential. That's you know, it operates on the idea that we are flawed, and that we've gotten to the epitome of where we can go intellectually in every way, right? And so the next step is to become like AI, and that not only denies our evolutionary potential, but it actually prevents it. Robin asked a question in the chat: how to unify folks on how to get people to agree on climate change?
Well, simple. Joseph McCormick, very interesting, the guy I talked about back in the 2000s. How did he get these Republican climate change deniers into a room, onto a retreat, a weekend retreat with Al Gore? He called it, "Oh, this is about energy policy." And at the end of that weekend, everybody was crying and hugging. And Pat Robertson, the founding, I think it's Christian Coalition minister,
Yeah.
he told his flock that climate change is real and it's human caused. So I would say you never want to talk about climate change ever again. You want to call it restoring the natural world. You want to call it that. You want to call it, because again, unfortunately, the climate change movement has devolved into carbon trading, and the part that's been neglected is restoring the soil. It's all captured by Monsanto. It's all captured by Monsanto. So it's a useless meme. So I would say, if you were to talk about bringing people together to restore the natural world and have healthy food, healthy air, and healthy water, you get 100% of the people on board. But climate change is a politically captured term. And so I wouldn't even bother with it, because again, it doesn't get to the point. It doesn't get to the what's happening with the oceans. It doesn't get to the plastic in the oceans. It doesn't get to restoring the soil rather than having artificial food. So it's not a unifying meme. It's a captured meme.
And I think essentially, if we could promote the idea that we are of interconnectedness with nature and how we are connected, if we could somehow, teach children how to connect with nature, or not to connect, but that we are connected, that it's this idea that we're separate from what we see is the essential problem. If we could,
I think there's three separations that have to be dealt with. One is separation from the divine, separated from the transcendent. You were talking about the people who are so interconnected. They're interconnected because they have, they are in touch with spirit. Whatever they call it, however they perceive it, they are grounded in that reality. Number two is other people, connected with other people. We're all part of the same family. And number three, the natural world, the web of nature. Okay. And this, I'm really excited about the book, the Symbiotic Age book that's coming out hopefully this fall, because it makes a lot of these distinctions and how to communicate. Because Richard Flyer, when he was doing his local food network, they had this event, and he purposely sat these two people next to each other. One of them was an evangelical minister who was an organic farmer. The other was a gay pagan who was a biodynamic gardener. Sat them together, and they became friends because they shared in common that respect for nature, that love of the natural world, and making clean food. So what has to happen is the trance of separation has to be broken, and it's
Exactly.
by identifying what are the politically captured narratives that make sure that this side will not be able to listen to that side. So
Mhm.
climate change, unfortunately, is one of those things, because it's now, if you believe in climate change, then you're a Democrat. It's insane. So the way to get past that trance is to focus on what we all want together. Here's something else that's crazy. Um, People on the progressive side that are fighting Make America Healthy Again. They're fighting what Bobby Kennedy is trying to do in food labeling and all of that. They should own it. We should own that together. That should be a meme that we all own together. But rather than have it be captured by one side or another. So we have our
Mhm.
work cut out for us, those who want to end the political trance, get people off the battlefield and onto a new playing field of cooperating together. And I think it begins with relocalization, relocalizing food to a certain extent, relocalizing energy to a certain extent.
What do you mean by relocalizing?
More people growing their own food locally.
Ah,
And like if I were doing Make America Healthy Again, I would be eliminating the food deserts that exist in inner cities, where the only food you can get is McDonald's.
hmm.
Um, when I was a kid, this is when I lived in projects in Bedford-Stuyvesant. Pretty much, I was one of the few white kids. So what happened was the black Muslims started organizing. They didn't like me, but I would go into their store just to annoy them, just to be there. But what they did was they started instituting homemade food, different food. This is like 50 or 60 years ago. They had their own bakeries where they're baking their own food. They had their own businesses. So we've had a welfare system that has crippled the Black community for 60 years by um, handouts, but not helping people create agency, so that the $4 trillion that goes to the poverty programs goes to support the people who keep the system manage the system rather than change the system. So I think that it would be that relocalizing food, having people grow their own food, mushrooms. People have learned to grow mushrooms. And this is healing food. Having their own backyard gardens, and then from the backyard garden, creating their own. We're growing cabbage. Well, we can make kimchi.
Yeah, but
Carl
people in the
Wilkins
inner
said,
cities can't
"Yeah,
grow their own food. Not everyone has a backyard.
they
No.
can have a community garden. They can have community
Uh-huh.
garden." They started doing that in Detroit with these
Yeah.
empty lots in Detroit. They started doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is, and then what happens is when people are growing their food and they get paid for what they're growing, that's an economy. It's renewable wealth. The next crop comes, they get paid again. The next crop comes, get paid again. So this is a way to relocalize. This is what Richard and his group did in Reno. They relocalized the economy so that the money circulated throughout the economy. It kept
Mm-hmm.
circulating. When money circulates through an economy, it prospers everybody in the way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in most of
There's
these
also
inner cities, the money gets extracted out of it.
yeah, there's also a movement that I read about some years back. Ah, I'm trying to remember the name of it. I don't. Well, one of the names is contributionism, but that's not the main title that it goes by. I might think of it, but it's basically getting rid of money, and it's a whole structured program. And there are actually some places in the world. One of them in Canada that I read about, a village that was implementing this, and it started with his first name is Michael. Don't remember his last name. He's from South Africa. I wish. Oh, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is
Oh,
the name.
Well,
Have you heard of
Ubuntu is
it?
a Well, actually, Ubuntu is it came out of Africa, and it's
Yeah.
basically like it's just like love God, love thy neighbor. It's the same golden rule that's
Well,
applied to
the word
yeah,
itself means I am who I am
you.
because we are who we are.
Yeah.
And it's the idea of not having a monetary system. It's very interesting. It sounds naive and simplistic with because I don't have time to explain it, but I was inspired by it. I thought it was a great idea. There is something in the chat that I had overlooked. Naila, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, Naila or Nyla, Claudia, asked, how do we turn pain into laughter? Maybe we should end on that note.
Tickling somebody. It's interesting. This is many, many, many years ago. I was doing a workshop on humor, and one of the people in the workshop, this is back during the AIDS time, and clear he and his partner were uh, both had AIDS, and they may have been symptomatic or not, but they were starting to get symptoms and so on. And what they realized is that it's not about laughing at your situation. It could be about laughing about something that's out there. So, in other words, you don't have to turn the laughter directly on whatever it is that's paining you. But they said that while they were watching things that were funny, they were not in pain.
Mm.
That's what Norman Cousins discovered. He discovered that it was a very painful condition that he had, but while he was engaged in laughter, it actually reduced his physical pain. And then for that period of time when this guy was in my class, he and his partner were watching comedy. Um, they had a respite from pain. So it's not so much, oh, now I have the double burden. Not only do I have this terrible condition, and now I got to laugh about it. Not that. You can do that voluntarily, of course. But if you find anything to laugh about, anything out there to laugh about, then that creates a sense of liberation, and that that laughter and the pain, it's hard for them to occupy the same space at the same time. So anything that makes you laugh, something silly. We watch um, animal videos, funny animal videos.
Yeah, I like those too.
And
there are actually laughter workshops that I've heard about, but I've never been to one where people get together and just laugh.
yeah, laughter for no reason. Now, I
Yeah.
think comedy is, I like comedy because it actually changes the mental condition about certain issues. So if you're able to laugh about certain things that have been vexing to you,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I work with a fairly well-known chiropractor who is doing workshops on this, and we did this workshop together where we had people think about what their painful issue was, and then actually looked one another in the eye and just laughed together. And it actually changed their perception of their painful issue. It became less, it went from the foreground to the background. And that's what it does.
Mm-hmm.
So anything that brings people together, I want to tell one quick story because I know we're getting to the end.
Yeah.
Perhaps the most magical comedy moment that I've ever experienced was something that happened in the 1980s. I was a freelance writer, and I went to cover a show that Dick Gregory did in Michigan. Dick Gregory, maybe you probably know him, but he was the first black stand-up comedian in the 60s, and he then became politically radical, changed his diet, and became a vegan, but a very, very funny man. So this was in the early 1980s, Oakland University in Michigan. And the audience was roughly 50% black, 50% white. So what he did was he eviscerated every group. He started with the white men, totally comedically eviscerated them, totally busted them down in a very funny way, took their foibles and totally eviscerated. Then he went on to white women. Then he went on to black men. And then he went on to black women, did the exact same thing with every one of these groups. And it was an amazing shamanic thing that he did, because when the lights went on and the show was over, it's perhaps the only time where I've been in a room of white people and black people looking each other in the eye. Because we were family at that point. We were all equally busted. I think now we need comedians that are going to bring people together and remind us that we're family.
Yeah, I agree. And David says it's so much easier to look at the good than dwell on the negative.
Yeah, well, Swami says life is like photography. Use the negative to develop.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Steve, for being here this evening with us and making us laugh. And we will look forward to a conversation about your book, Spontaneous Evolution, on September 19th.
I'll make sure we bring the Swami quotes in there too.
Okay.
Okay.
All
so
right.
Thank you. If I were Swami, I would say namaste, namasko.
And thank you all for attending.
Thank you, everybody.
See you next time. Bye.